Anyway, so I went on rant about MVP, but basically, to me, he was the best player because at a time he was way better than everyone else. And when I watch Maru these days, obviously his micro is more impressive, his macro is more impressive, but I never got like, whoa, Maru did this. Whoa, that's insane. Maru innovation, they play extremely well, right? But they're not doing anything innovative. They're not doing a play where I'm like, holy shit, that's smart. And back then, MVP, like I feel like every time I watched him, I saw something new. And without really dictating the meta, he did dictate the Terran meta a lot. And a lot of the players in Europe and NA copied MVP. And he always came up with the new stuff.
Oh, that's hot.
And
I appreciate the content.
Grateful Sean, thank you so much for being grateful. Much appreciated. Thank you for the 16 months and thank you for the resub. So yeah, to me, MVP was the best. Think of, you know who I would compare MVP to today? Imagine like a mix of Gumiho and TY, except he just wins everything. In all the matchups. No matter who the opponent is. That was MVP. But a mix of Gumiho and TY would probably be like MVP playstyle.
What's going on?
Except, like I said, he won everything. Until he started having carpal tunnel, and he slowly stopped playing because of it.
Huh? Bad news. And the
Not enough rooms.
Huh?
I think it's very hard to look at which are the best players because everyone has a different criteria, right? Someone looks at best player just mechanically, which in my opinion is the absolute worst way to compare players. Like, who's the best player in the world ever, right? And people are like, well, it's obviously Legacy of the Void because people now are better than back then. But that's stupid to say, right? I mean, when you talk about sports, there's always someone from back in the day that people love and say he was the best, of all time. Even though that fighters or sports players these days would whoop their ass, right? Because the sport evolved, StarCraft evolved, obviously. But I think you need to look at the skill compared to the time where that player was, or sports player, gamer, whatever. And yeah, I just think that MVP was so much better than anyone else that didn't really exist in StarCraft II. Now, Serral is much better than everyone else, but Serral does... The reason why I'm like... I don't know, maybe it is Serral, but my favorite player is MVP. But the reason why I'm not like, oh, Serral, because Serral is a Zerg, and you can't really innovate too much with Zerg. You're just doing the same thing over and over, you know? With Terran, you have more freedom to kind of experiment and, you know, do a different opener, different harassment, this or that, and yeah.
Not enough rooms.
I mean, I would say that, yes, Serral is probably, skill-wise, and how much more dominant he is, just skill-wise, Serral is probably the best player ever in StarCraft II. But he's not the most innovative player. Like, honestly, Stefano had way more influence on Zerg gameplay than Serral ever did. Oh, what did I make the replay? Bye-bye. Like, again, for those that didn't watch back then, Stefano had a huge impact in how Zergs played these days. Huge, up to this day. Serral never had that. And mechanically, sure, he is the best, but... I don't know.
What's going on?
It's like... I don't know, this might be a stupid comparison, but this is how I see it, right? who was better, the guy who invented airplanes or the pilot? That's how I see Legacy of the Void players, most of them. And I see a lot of the old school players, people who invented a lot that's happening in the game. Not to say that maybe that would, you know, never be figured out, but they definitely upped the process a lot more.
Not enough add-on. Research.
I think, okay, what I'm trying to say is to end this convo so we don't go in fucking circles. In 2 years from now, there's gonna be someone that's gonna destroy Serral. And
This better be good.
you know, every player gets forgotten. And I know some people are gonna be like, no, but people are always gonna remember Serral. I mean, sure, they will because he's a foreigner. But people, I mean, how many people remember Hero dominating in StarCraft II? And I don't mean CJ Entus Hero, but Liquid Hero. No one talks about him now like the best Protoss. They're like, that was in Wings. Same thing is gonna happen with Serral. Well, he was the best, but back then, that was like 2019, like everyone was meh. But what MVP did and what Stefano did is something that people will remember forever because they shaped the game. But yeah, that's my opinion on that. So, like I said, it depends what you perceive as the best, what you look at skill-wise or whatever-wise. What does best even mean? But yeah.
Research complete.
This better be by the number. Been waiting on you. Yes, sir. Ready.
Talk to me.
Not enough minerals.
It's obviously an interesting discussion. I can't remember. I think it was on Pylon Show. Artosis discussed this with someone, like who's the greatest player of all time. And they had a much different answer than mine. But like I said, it depends on who you ask, and it depends what race you play or played.
Now, talk to me.
Not enough minerals.
And depends what criteria you use to determine or discuss that, I guess.
In the rear with the gear.
Will do now.
What's
Not
going
enough
on?
minerals. Not enough minerals. Not enough energy.
Armed and ready. Coming through. Been waiting. This better by the number, boys.
Upgrade complete. Not enough minerals. Additional supply depots required.
Ready for dust off.
I can't build here.
Acknowledged.
Like, I can't name a single thing that Maro did or Innovation that I learned from them. I didn't learn shit by watching them play.
Additional
Because they didn't do anything that wasn't done before. I don't know about that blink.
Bad news? This better be good. Sure thing. Boy. Been waiting. Armed and ready. Die, die, die.
Where's the emergency?
didn't Maru make proxies work, though? She sure did. You know who also made proxies work? People in 2010. Proxy Legacy work differently? Sure, but the proxies that Maru did, people were doing it on the ladder for months in high GM. So he didn't invent proxy racks. Proxy racks were really good initially. I mean, go watch YouTube in Legacy Void Beta. I did proxy racks, and everyone did proxy racks, and they worked. And then people learned how to defend them, and then the meta evolved to proxy racks having a different purpose. Maru didn't do that. He used it to win tournaments, sure, but he didn't invent proxy racksing against anyone, or that specific variation. Do you remember some of the things that MVP innovated? Sure. He innovated, first of all, mech. He was the first, I think, player that I've seen that does mech. He was the first player to do bunker pushes with siege tanks in wings. He was the first player that I've seen to abuse the most abusable spots with siege tanks. He would always, every map, he always had, like, people would push through the middle or through the left side, and then he goes all the way around through the right side on the map and finds like one spot where the siege tank can be reached from certain point, and that ends up winning him the game or something like that. He was the first player to actually go long macro games and not cheese. Terran was super cheesy in Wings of Liberty. Proxy racks, cheeses, and all that. MVP was the first player, and people that watch Wings know this, that was going super late game and used ghosts. He was the first player that I've seen that was splitting the map and using ghosts, mass ghosts to snipe Broodlords. And there's so many more things like that, right? Like even Marine King had, in my opinion, a bigger impact in Innovation or Maru as far as game development goes. Marine King was the first player that I've seen split his Marines. That's why it's, Marine King. And when that happened, I remember watching it. My mind was blown. Nesty versus MP on Shakuras. Exactly. Everyone remembers that game that watched Wings. Everyone. I don't know a single person that doesn't remember that game. You remember it because of Ghosts versus... I know what everyone remembers it. Because of Ghosts killing the Overseers. Or I don't know if he even had Overseers. Ghosts cloaking and killing all the Broodlords with snipes. And everyone remembers that. Because it was like... shit. You know? But when you remember Maru games, you remember it because he played really well mechanically and it was a back and forth game. And that's fine. That's not bad, right? He is extremely good mechanically, but he didn't invent shit. So yeah, MVP did a lot of... Flash invented mech. No, he didn't. MVP played mech in Wings of Liberty. Flash and Kespa people came over in Heart of the Swarm. MVP had really good builds. He had really crisp builds on each map that would hit at the right timing, at the right place, for the right reason. People these days, they do the same thing over and over, and it's just a matter of who does it better, who does it faster. That's it. The only player that I would say these days that's experimenting and that has like big brain is Gumiho, that I see from Terrans. All the other Terrans do the same thing. Same thing, over and over. It's just variation of the same thing. They're not doing anything new. Gumiho is the only player that I can say that also had impact on the game quite a bit. Who was it that came out with a blue flame opening in TVZ? It was Slayers. It was Slayers at an MLG when Tal'Darim Altar was in the map pool. I remember this. And again, I remember this because they created something so powerful that blue flame was nerfed because of Slayers' team. Because all their Terrans destroyed every Zerg they played against, and Protoss, and Terran. They've used it in all three matchups. They found a build that hit so early, it was fast Blue Flame Hellion Rush. Blue Flame, by the way, that you know now, is nerfed. It was way stronger back then. And Slayer's team came prepared with that build, and they destroyed everyone, that tournament. And shortly after, the Blue Flame was nerfed. Mora was the original Reaper abuser. See, that's another good example of exactly what I'm saying, right? Exactly what I'm saying. You guys are only remembering the players that invented something, that made an impact, right? Moro was the first player that I've seen abuse Mass Reaper. It's funny how I just talked about this, and then you guys, the stuff that you're bringing up are all unique things that people have brought up. What about SOS? I don't know. To me, SOS, I mean, this is going to be a very unpopular opinion amongst people because I know people love SOS. But SOS is just extremely cheesy and takes so many risks. And because he's so cheesy, people want to play safe against him and then his risks pay off. He's a great player still, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he's bad. I don't know, his games are entertaining, but I was never, you know, holy shit, you know, when I watched him play. Because people only, see, this is another thing. It's the, I don't know what to call it, selection bias. People only remember SOS games when they worked out. You don't remember the cringe games. Do you remember SOS versus Serral at BlizzCon? Do you remember when he cannon rushed and he failed miserably? It was the worst cannon rush I've seen in my life. People don't remember that. People remember what he did. It was amazing. He did a lot of terrible builds and terrible executions, but no one remembers the bad ones because he's that kind of player that does the weird stuff, so people remember when they were. If you haven't watched, Google Serral versus SOS at BlizzCon. It was the most garbage cannon rush I've ever seen in my life. The worst. He won 2 BlizzCon? No, don't get me wrong. He's still a great player. It's just not something for me. Someone asked earlier, who is the best Protoss player of all time? Oh, that's a hard one. Like, Heart of the Swarm era is really hard because there's so many patch Protosses that were just winning because Protoss was broken. I would have to say, I actually don't think any Legacy of the Void Protoss was the best because a lot of Legacy of the Void Protosses look really strong and then they fall apart. I don't see any Legacy of the Void Protoss actually dominating. But I'm torn between 2, and that's MC and Rain. Both MC and Rain, when they played, they looked untouchable, especially MC. So I would actually even maybe give that to MC. MC, when he played, he wasn't even winning against people. He was like walking over people, how badly he was winning. But it's hard to give him the best Protoss title because he was just all-inning. Like, probably Rain was best defensive Protoss of all time, and MC was probably the most aggressive Protoss. It's hard for Protoss. Stats are Trap. The Trap didn't even win a tournament. What do you mean? How is he the best of all time? You can make an argument for stats, but I feel like stats, one season of GSL, he looks untouchable. Like, he looks like a god. And then next season, he just falls out. That's it. To me, that's stats in a nutshell. One season, he looks like the greatest fighter. You're like, how do I beat this guy? But then the next season, he just like, and he goes out. When MC played, he was walking over everyone. Doesn't matter who the opponent was. Doesn't matter what the matchup was. Everyone knew he's going to all in, and everyone still lost to him. And he was the only Protoss to do that when in Wings of Liberty. The only Protoss. When Terran was really strong, when Zerg was broken in Broodlord Infestor, like now, he was destroying everyone. And that's why MC's wins are really impressive. Again, stats is skill-wise, Stats and Classic are probably the best Protosses. How about Parting and Soul Train? Parting was also really good, but Parting is like a lesser version of MC. Their playstyle is very similar, but MC I think was just better. Yeah, I actually my favorite Protoss right now is Classic, and Classic has been my favorite Protoss for like past 2-3 years. Let me go back to the thing I was telling you guys about, that people only remember players that had impact on the game. Taeja, for those who don't know, I think is the player with the most tournament wins, which 95% of you probably had no idea about that. Maybe you don't even know who Taeja is. You know why no one, when you talk about the best player of all time for Terran, do you know why no one talks about Taeja? No one mentions Taeja. No one. You know why? Because he played the most linear Terran you've ever seen in your life. He was just mechanically better. That's it. There's nothing he did that was anything special. He was just better than others. And that's it. Like Serral? Well, yes, but the difference is Serral is a foreigner that's dominating. So people are going to remember. Like Innovation? Yeah, like Innovation. Teja and Innovation are very similar to one another. I don't know if you guys saw Teja's games. He came back recently in GSL, and I watched those games, and I was like, he's playing exactly the same way he played 5 years ago. Exactly the same way. He expanded, he got up to a third base, he was like running with 4 Medivacs around, but not really attacking, just like controlling the map, and then he tried to do like a 16 Viking SCV Marine Marauder 2-2 push, and he got fucking wrecked by Protoss, and I was like, that doesn't work anymore, buddy. Like, he looked terrible in that game that I saw, and it's like he's still doing the same thing he did, because back then he would actually just have more units by macroing well, and yeah.
SCV ready.
But he works on ladder. Well,
Big job, huh? Ah! You scared me! Go ahead.
Additional supply depots. Not enough minerals.
Life, I mean, this is also unpopular opinion, but I give 2 shits about Life. Like, he ruined StarCraft in Korea completely, and I don't know how people can support him. He is the sole reason why StarCraft in Korea has gone to shit and sponsors pulled out. Why do you think there's no teams in StarCraft 2? It's because of Life. It's not because StarCraft dead game or whatever. It's because Life fucked it up by gambling. And it's mind-boggling how anyone is supporting him. Like, he literally fucking killed Korean scene by match fixing.
In the rear with the gear.
I don't know if people don't know about it, if they don't know that's the reason why Korean scene is gone and why teams are not there anymore.
Bad news. Big job.
But for those who don't know, Life was a Zerg player that was very good. Best Zerg player at the time, and he was caught match fixing. He got sent to jail. He had to pay I don't know how much money back, and shortly after that, Korea had a huge StarCraft II scene with Kespa, with teams. There was a Team Prime, IM, Generic Green Wings. I can't remember all the Kespa teams. Team 8. Yeah, I can't remember all the teams, but the point is, Korea had a big scene and there was a lot of money. That's when Flash was playing and everything else. And then when he was caught match fixing, sponsors pulled out because why the fuck do companies want to be associated with a game that has match fixing in it? So they pulled out. CJ Entis, that's right. So yeah, you can thank Life for that.
What's going on? Big job.
Because I think a lot of people don't know that. Initially it wasn't talked about it, but it's very common knowledge. Or it's becoming more and more common knowledge. That's his doing.
Center upgrade complete.
What's match fixing? It's playing a best of 5 and then selling one game, like you lose the game on purpose for like $20,000, something like that. Yeah, he dropped maps on purpose. And I'm actually glad. Like, I know people are like, oh, they took Life from the BlizzCon Cup, because on BlizzCon Cup there's like a name of each previous BlizzCon winner. I'm glad they took his name off because he's a disgrace for the game.
Not enough minerals.
And whenever people are like, yeah, I mean, he match fixed, but he was still God. I mean, we don't know how many games he was actually winning and how many he match fixed. He only got caught for like 3-4 games, but do you really think those were his first 3-4 games he threw and he got caught instantly? Please.
What's going on?
Like, who the fuck knows how many games he fixed and how many people threw the games for him and stuff like that? I mean, only 4 people got caught in that whole scandal. You think that there was only 4 involved? Of course not. You know how many... You can actually go back and look at the time when he got arrested. Do you know how many players quit playing? Just disappeared? Why do you think they disappeared? Randomly? Bruh. Cheater is a cheater. And the thing I hate the most is people cheating, and to me, he's a nobody. Because his wins I mean, he got caught match fixing. His wins are not legit anymore. Because how many wins did the opponent throw for him? You don't know. I don't know. Maybe none. Maybe half of them. We don't know. And that's the problem. Once someone is caught cheater once, you can never know if he's cheating again. If the, you know, every next situation, people are like, why don't they allow him to play? Well, because he was in jail for it. Like, it's not a joke. He didn't throw games for $50.
Not enough energy.
And
In the rear with the gear.
Not enough.
let's say he returned to playing. Every next game he would play and something happened, like he scouted something randomly or something happened. You wonder, is he match fixing again? I don't know. Maybe he is. Maybe he is. Why am I making Reapers? What's wrong with me?
ETA in 1 minute.
I can't build here.
Not enough minerals.
Waiting on you.
Like, did he even say sorry ever?
SCV ready.
I don't remember him ever apologizing, like, sorry for doing this, for doing that.
Mineral field.
Bruh.
Now,
Additional supply. Mineral field completed. Mineral field.
But yeah, this is a very unpopular opinion, because a lot of the StarCraft II scene drools over life. Like, oh, he was the greatest Zerg player in the world. Blah, blah, blah.
Base is under attack.
Maybe, maybe not.
Who wants some?
We'll never know, huh?
We've been waiting on you.
ready.
Armed and ready.
Should I just kill this Zerg right now?
Command center upgrade complete.
This better.
Not enough. Research complete.
This better. Who wants some? Forward to it. Why not? This better be good. Armed and ready. That's
Not enough minerals.
bad news. Sure.
Life flight's here. Now what?
By the dollar, damn it. Who wants some? Been waiting on you. Been waiting on
Mineral
you.
field.
GG. Do you ever wonder what MVP, MMA, and ST or MC are doing these days? MVP was actually streaming recently, like 6 months ago maybe. He was actually playing some StarCraft II, but I think he's still like suffering from arm hand issues. But yeah, the reason why I said it's like unpopular opinion, because every time I see Life mentioned somewhere, people are like, oh my god, bring back Life, he's the greatest player. Blizzard, just let him play. It's like, no. Get him out of here. Oh, and Marine King? Dude, Marine King, I am like 90% sure there was something going on there. Do you guys remember that game, Marine King, on that frozen map? I don't know, dude. I don't know.